everybody. Nice to be here.
Yeah, and today we're going to be talking about Game on Tabletop. We're going to kind of dive into the platform, understand some more about it, and understand kind of what makes Game on Tabletop special that, can welcome new creators and new game designers to the platform. And if you have any questions for Laura, feel free to just drop it into the comments. It'll show up on our end, and we'll be able to answer those questions too. So to get us started, Laura, I would love for you to kind of start telling us about yourself, just you, how you got into the game, in the tabletop industry.
I'm Laura. I'm 30 years old now, and I've been in this industry since 2014 through a very happy circumstance. I've been an avid gamer as always for a long time. It's been an absolute dream of mine to be able to start to work in that industry, and then kind of like through different connections, I ended up working at Convention Essen for a French RPG publisher because I am German, and so I spoke German, so that was helpful. And then they hired me on for a lot of different projects, and I've been with them ever since. And so Game On is also a project from them, which is kind of like, I was split off, but it's still part of the company. So that's me and my little story, how I came into that industry.
That's awesome. And so now I guess this is like a great segue into Game on Tabletop, right? Tell us more about the platform, like its history, how long it's been around, what we can do on the platform itself too.
Yes, so Game On started out from the need by this publisher that it still belongs to when they wanted to run crowdfunding games back in 2013, like really when it started to pick up. And so big platforms like Kickstarter were not yet really available for French publishers. And so they built their own platform on their own website and ran with that, and then worked really great. And so a couple of other French publishers started using it too, and then German publishers. And so it kind of like grew a bit. And then at some point, we realized that there were other people out there, internationally speaking, that were also looking for other opportunities, for other alternatives, something that's more dedicated to the table space and will also allow more functionality and be a solution to a lot of common problems that are a part of crowdfunding. And so it became Game On. So we renamed the platform, we translated it, we built a bunch of new features, and we made it into a platform that's now available for all kinds of tabletop related games or projects, and also internationally.
Love it. Love it. You mentioned that, this was kind of a result of some issues or some problems people were facing when they were trying to launch on crowdfunding. Would you mind kind of talking us through like what these issues were and how, Game On was able to really like overcome that with the platform itself?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the other more general platforms, they struggle with the fact that they have to deal with a lot of different industries. And so every industry comes with their own set of needs. And that's one of our advantages, is being able to be focused on the needs of the tabletop industry. And so I think the biggest point is obviously the fact that on many other platforms, you have only limited data that's available to you throughout the campaign. So a lot of projects have to go through something that's called a pledge manager to actually re-invite everybody, collect shipping address, collect additional funds, and sort that out through a third-party service provider, basically, that comes on top of the crowdfunding platform that you're already using, that you're already investing time in, that you're already paying. And so the biggest part is obviously that all of that is integrated into Game On, and also we try to work on a lot of features that make running a campaign easier. Like stretch goals are a thing that we acknowledge that every campaign has in some form, even if we see them used differently, but generally they're a big part of the tabletop crowdfunding as we know it today. And so there's something that's built into Game On. You set them up and they will unlock automatically. You don't have to go in there and switch out the images. And so I think that's kind of like the spirit behind it, is we look at tabletop crowdfunding, what it is, what it needs, and how we can provide services and that extent.
Yeah, I love that you talk about how other crowdfunding platforms have so many audiences that they have to cater to, from like even just a creator standpoint, that it makes it difficult to just create like a suite of tools or software that helps that one like niche, like tabletop designers. And that Game On was able to really recognize their main core target demo and build out the tools necessary for that. So with this said, right, like, can you kind of tell us more about these tools? You talked about stretch goals, how it's like definitely something that every game has already, and then you make it easier to roll out. You talk about making it seamless to do pre-orders and go to like post-campaign pledge management. Can you kind of like tell us some more about how these kind of came to be and how they kind of work in the real world?
So the main idea of Game On is that a client should come to the platform and kind of be able to select as much as possible around what they're actually getting, right? So that means that they can fill up their shipping address. In most cases, they will pay for shipping right away. They can select the entirety of what they want to have in their pledge in detail. On other platforms, there sometimes are no add-ons, so they have to just like randomly add additional funds and then later figure out what they actually wanted to get. And the idea for Game On is, no, you go in and you can select that add-on or you can add it, which doesn't mean that you cannot come back and modify throughout the campaign, or that the creator cannot add more stuff. But yeah, the idea is to have something where they go through, and then basically the backer can either choose to come back and modify and they still continue to share and explore with the creator, or they have their order in and they're sure they're gonna get it at the end, and they don't have to necessarily come back or check their email inbox to double check if there is like a pledge management invitation. So that's kind of like the streamlined idea behind that. And we've built a lot of things that continue to go into that sense. Like one of our new features is our digital loot, which is basically a digital file fulfillment library. So like if you have a board game and you have a print-to-play version, people can then download it on the website, or if you're an RPG publisher, you can have the PDF versions of your books to be available through Game On. Don't have that additional third step. And I think that's our philosophy behind it, figuring out what are the parts that are really making a difference in a streamlined process for tabletop games, and trying to build them in.
Got it. Yeah, I love that. Like really just kind of cutting out all these different steps game designers have to go through in order to like get products to people in a way too, right? Like it's just making it simpler, just honing it down to just the basics, simplifying. And from here, before I ask more about like what the future is for Game On, I wanted to talk about, since this is a marketing place where we talk about marketing, tell us about the marketing aspects. Like what is it like to market when on Game On, or even like before coming onto Game On? Like what is there any difference with Indiegogo, Kickstarter, GameFound, things like that? Like what is it like for creators?
So I think this journey is very similar to a lot of platforms, because I think what makes a lot of projects really stand out is the effort and time and resources you put into building your audience. I know you talk about that a lot, right? Audience is key. That's your number one point, and that's true for crowdfunding as a whole, I think. And so that's pretty similar with our platform. You have to bring in your peeps. You have to bring in your folks that will back you, that will be there day one. So obviously that's my first recommendation that we can give. We will also try to push through our own audiences, through our social media, to our newsletter, to our backers. The fact is, this Game On is a different spot. It's tabletop gamers that are looking for the next big hit or the next amazing project that might not see the light of day otherwise. And so obviously it's more of it's obviously a smaller space than a big general platform might be, but it's also a much more curated place, because the people that come there and that visit our website day-to-day, well, they come there to buy games, right? And so you have already narrowed it down a lot to have a potential audience that's going to be present that might potentially be interested in your project. Also, we always try to work as closely as possible as we can with creators. Obviously, it's their job to build their campaign and also their job to do the marketing, but we're always there to talk with them and give ideas if we have some, or also to pick up on ideas they might have. Like sometimes creators have great ideas, but they don't have necessarily the resources or don't know how. And if there's something that we can do as Game On to support that, we're always also super interested in helping build something.
Got it. So it's not only like, hey, you're building community and then we can kind of help you with the understanding the marketing side of things, but it seems like Game On is kind of getting more into the weeds of how a creator launches too, right? Like making sure to correct me if I'm wrong, but like giving pointers and tips where necessary too when working with a creator.
Of course, so we try our best in that, and obviously we are also just a small team, right? And we cannot be there all the time for creators, but we try to spend as much time as possible in the beginning, throughout the project, after the project, as much as we can. And we're always really happy to share our knowledge. It's kind of like about making it less overwhelming to start out with crowdfunding, or also for repeat crowdfunders, making it more durable, right? Working on pain points that come back a lot, right? Figuring out, talking to the teams, making sure they are aware of what needs to go into crowdfunding and who needs to be involved and who do we need to talk to. And obviously, I mean, creators, you know that, right? You talk to a lot of creators as well. They are looking for so many resources, and there's so much to be taught. There's so much to know, basically, and we cannot fill all of the gaps, but we do as best as we can. And I'd say I'm pretty close to a lot of people we've worked with, and it's a very special place to be in, to see them also like sometimes at the lowest and sometimes at the highest, right? The whole stress and the whole roller coaster that's crowdfunding. We try to be as close as possible with our creators.
Got it. Yeah. So it seems like, again, there's that relationship that you're building with your creators, and you're it's not like maybe some other platforms where you're just kind of left to your own devices and kind of, hey, just go ahead and do it and hope you succeed in a way, right? So it seems like, again, there's a lot of education in the front end that Game On is offering to creators who are kind of looking to crowdfund, right? Can you tell us more about some of the educational resources that you have? Because I've personally even seen a lot of the videos that have been published about this. So kind of it'd be great if you kind of go into this and where and what people can find.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's something that we still building, and we definitely want to build more and more. That we've started out. So it started out with just talking to the creators, right? Just basically at least have one call, go through their project, figuring out as well where do they need help or where are they good to go, right? We've also done already like personalized coachings. It's sometimes I'd go visit that publisher and I talk to every member in their team and kind of like give them in-depth crowdfunding crash course, basically. So those are things that we've been doing as well, and we want to work obviously on more resources. So we're building a blog, we're building a YouTube channel that Celine, my colleague, is doing, and I think that's really great. There's so many topics that we want to cover in there, because there's so many questions. Sometimes it's very difficult to kind of like build that all up, because projects are so different and they have so many different needs, and it's also one of the things I think why it sometimes takes us a lot of time to actually get those resources. Because like if you just look at it from one point of view, like whether you're an indie creator or a huge company or a repeat crowdfunder, it's so different. It challenges your needs, the questions you might have, and what we're kind of like working on is keeping that in mind and building resources around all of that. And yeah, so I hope we continue to see more and more of those. We're also building spaces like our Discord server to have creators also be able to share their own experiences and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a lot of work that we are really trying to push forward as much as we can.
I love it. I love that, again, you're working on really building up that content and pool of resources people can learn about, just like getting their game out there, from even, you said, indie designers all the way to like big publishers, right? And building out these resources for people to really come in and just learn, right? Because at the end of the day, the way to get the word out there about games and about everything that we're creating is to learn and kind of apply those strategies. So from here, you mentioned that, there's a team behind this, right? You mentioned Celine just now working on a lot of the content. I would love for you to kind of tell us about the team. What is everyone up to, and what's their specialty, and how are they contributing to building up Game On?
Absolutely, with a pleasure, because I'm often the person giving these interviews because I kind of like, as a CEO, kind of see all the bits and pieces. But we have an amazing team mind behind the whole project that I love working with, and I know that they're achieving a lot. And we're still a tiny team. Sometimes people are like, "Oh yeah, you must be many people," but we're like not that many. So we have obviously Celine that maybe some people might have seen with on the YouTube channel who's running it. She's our brand and community manager, doing all of these things, building up, also trying to understand what are the best marketing features that we can also offer, and combine that for creators. And then always we have, obviously we have our sales people, which are in the forefront. So I'm still working with project creators, but most of it is now handled by Julia and David Lockwood. That's a lot of people, I guess, know around here as well, and they're creating and supporting all of those project managers throughout the time. And then we have our developers, and what I really love about our team is the fact that we're all very dedicated and we're all hardworking, but we're all like also split around the world, basically. So a lot of our people are obviously in France, but Julia is Lithuania and David is in the US, and also we have lots of girls around, which is, I know I've been there and I've seen that that's not that common as well, but it's also a super fun environment. And so yeah, I think it's empowering to see how much work goes in there and how the bits and pieces come together.
Yeah, so it seems like, again, a powerhouse team and also a remote team, right? What is it like kind of working remotely, trying to help people launch and trying to kind of figure out all these moving parts just to keep a platform going, putting in creators and also supporting these creators too? What is that like?
So we have a part of our team that's on site, but obviously with the whole pandemic situation, that's been a bit more crazy. And some of our collaborators also already worked around the world, like you said. And I think it's never been an issue for us. We love working together, and we also love supporting the project managers we work with. And I think it needs a lot of adaptation. It needs you need to be ready, right, to get on those calls in a different time zone whenever needed. And you also need to acknowledge that people need to launch in some very weird time frames, often the evening, and so sometimes there needs to be technical support around because they're testing a new feature, stuff like that. And there's a lot of goodwill in being there and embracing that adventure. And I think the biggest benefit that we are getting out of that is to see the differences of people working in different locations, different cultures, really see that tabletop industry as a whole and not just focused on one single location.
Yeah, I love that. You have that diverse like perspective in a way, and also you get to see all the different parts of the industry too. So with this said, right, there's a lot of parts to games and a lot of parts to tabletop. What are the kind of focus? Maybe, I don't know if there is a focus, but what is the focus of games that are launching on Game On? Is there a particular focus, or is it any type of game coming to Game On?
So we are obviously very happy to welcome any type of game or even game-related projects. Like we currently have a project of a game store, right? That's fine too, or it might be an app or something equivalent. And we do have a very strong audience of RPG publishers because historically we come from the RPG section, so obviously kind of like in Europe, it's, I'd say, really the most important platform for RPG projects. So obviously that's a strong strain, but apart from that, we have a bit of everything. I think generally family children's games are a bit less represented in crowdfunding. The target audience is not as strong, and so we also see that, but I'd say that's kind of similar in a lot of platforms, at least like games for younger children. But apart from that, we welcome all types of games, and we have all kinds of games as well in our platform, even though sometimes you might come on there and there are a lot of RPGs freshly launched. But yeah, we also are really proud about that as well because we love RPGs. So. But everything related to the tabletop industry, I think, makes sense for us completely because it's close enough that it's the same environment and we understand it well. I'm a gamer. Most of the people in our team are really avid gamers, and so it's about bringing all that, connecting all that, bringing that together, and making an even long-term success of that.
Yeah, I love it. And from here, right, you're talking about how the different types of projects that come onto Game On and different types of projects that can be on Game On and you often see on Game On. From like a marketing standpoint, right? Or from like a how to get the word out standpoint. What do you see are kind of maybe changes that are happening within the tabletop industry? How are you seeing people change the ways they market, they get the word out, they attract people to know their game? Because as we were talking about earlier, it's all about building an audience. It's all about bringing on your audience to a platform.
So I think right now I'm in a point of really observing a lot, because last year was a very weird year, as everybody has noted, and there are a couple of people who really use that to their advantage in that kind of way, right? They really use the online presences really well, and we're innovative on that. And a lot of other people are still very concentrated on the way it sometimes works, like with conventions and face-to-face meetings and play testing, and all of those bits and pieces currently are kind of like shifting around and getting new strategies. So currently I think it's a very interesting point, and for me it's still too early to kind of like really say what's currently evolving, because I think still people are really testing out. But yeah, I'd say in general, for me, crowdfunding is still a lot about innovation, and it's what makes crowdfunding special. And so I kind of feel we kind of like go through waves where there might be a couple of crowdfunding projects that do really well, and then everybody's like, oh, I'm just gonna do the way they did, and then these projects probably will do quite well as well for a while, and then it kind of gets too routinely, and you have to reinvent something. I think it's, for now at least, it's still in the essence of crowdfunding innovation, and so it changes so quickly. It's always ever evolving, and there are sometimes trends that come out, and then people are like, okay, that's the way I had to do it. I don't believe that to be true. I believe crowdfunding to be in constant evolution all the time, especially in these times, right? But as online business is getting even more traction right now, even more importance, it also opens up a lot of more opportunities for crowdfunding, because the attention is online, and a crowdfunding campaign most of the time happens online. So yeah. Get the attention of people out there, and don't stop to innovate.
Got it. I love that. So when we're speaking of innovation, right? Clearly, Game On is building out tools very specific to the tabletop space and very specific to what creators need in the tabletop space. What are kind of your plans moving forward for Game On, right? Like, what are kind of the 5-year, 10-year even goals, and what can we look forward to when we go to Game On, go to check it out, go to see the types of like tools that you're rolling out for people?
So I think in the crowdfunding spheres, 5-year, 10-year plans are a bit ambitious, because
I know it was a hard question.
But apart from that, I think so. Right now, we've pushed out a lot of big features over the past couple of months, and so it's also a lot about stabilizing them, and especially listening to feedback. That's also something that's always really important for us. So making them right, making them really perfect, evolving as well from the feedback that you can come. And then it's the same way around, right? We've hit a couple of big milestones that we wanted to hit, and we have a couple of other things lining up that I know are kind of like game changers for a couple of creators that are in the same sense as the marketplace we built, where they can sell over stock, or the digital loot that we built with the digital file fulfillment, right? Those are big milestones that streamline the process. And so I think that's the continuation of Game On. I'm not talking yet about the exact features until they're a bit more advanced. But yeah, I mean, that's our core, and that's what we try to achieve and move forward in that way, right? Building those tools, continuing to build those tools.
Got it. Yeah, that sounds great. Again, innovation, moving forward, and just since Game On really knows who their target audience is, although you can't speak much to the future like features that are coming out and the big milestones that are coming out, I really do trust that the features will be very, very supportive of, gamers and the needs that they have, because they're, again, very specific to this particular niche too. And one of the questions that I had that I forgot to ask earlier is actually who and what countries can launch on Game On? Because obviously different crowdfunding platforms have different limitations on countries that are allowed. Is this worldwide? Is it specific countries? Like, can anyone launch? How does that work?
So on the contrary to a couple of other platforms out there, we are really a service provider platform, meaning that we don't cash in the money on our end and then redistribute. It's the project managers that are going to collect their own money. So we're a bit less limited than some other platforms. It's more about whenever we start working with a new location, we try to figure out what are the specific needs. And so the number one feature is always going to be payment methods, because every freaking country in this world has their own preferences, right? I live in France, and our next door neighbors, Germany, they don't use credit cards as we do here in France, and they do wire transfers, right? So it's like that can be the biggest struggle, because we want to provide solutions for their cultural needs that fit, because it doesn't make a lot of sense to launch in your country when like a part of people cannot pay because they don't have a credit card, right? So I think that would be the biggest limitation. So far, we are mainly working with projects from the US, France, Germany, Italy, the UK, obviously Australia, and then a couple of other countries that we've worked with, obviously, like Belgium, Spain, Sweden, stuff like that. And then, like, if there's a creator from another country, the best is to reach out to us, and we will look into it. Is it already possible, right? Can you just go ahead and launch, or will we need to dig deeper? Also provide a language version that's more dedicated to that specific location, and so it's going to be in a case-to-case basis.
Got it. Okay, so it's not like Kickstarter or Indiegogo where they use like Stripe, I believe, as a payment processing platform. Mm-hmm. Payment processor, and so there are very limited countries according to the payment processor. Game On does it a little differently.
Yeah, so we also use Stripe as a default, but not every country has the possibility to work with Stripe. So sometimes we will build a new payment feature for that specific country if there is a need, and if we can work something out together, right? So those are things that are happening. The big differentiator is that we don't play the exact same role as Kickstarter might do, for instance, because we don't collect the money on behalf of the project manager. So that gives a lot of, it's more like marketplaces like eBay or stuff like that might manage it. And so that, I think that opens up more possibilities, because it allows us to offer different payment services based on location. And so, yeah. But then again, like I said, every country is so different. That's very difficult to say. Everybody can just launch, but everybody is definitely welcome. And we are always trying our best to look into if we can provide a service.
Love it. I think this kind of point alone opens so many people's doors for launching on crowdfunding, because a lot of the time people struggle because they cannot launch on a platform like Kickstarter or Indiegogo just because of the limitations of the platform itself. But knowing that Game On, again, has the capability to work with individual people and kind of potentially build up custom solutions in a way is really, really kind of beneficial to a lot of people around the world. And you also touched on the fact that the payment for using Game On is a little different than any other crowdfunding platform. Can you kind of go deeper into that? How does Game On charge? What do people owe? Things like that.
So I think there are a couple of crowdfunding platforms that do it the same way we do, but so basically it's like I don't know if there are anybody who's sold on eBay before, but basically when you're selling on eBay, you're connecting your PayPal account and then you receive the money, and eBay basically issues an invoice and you have to pay that amount of their commission. And so it's a very similar way how it works with us. We hook up with your own Stripe or PayPal account, and you collect the money and we will invoice our commission. So our commission is 5% from the total amount raised, but we don't charge that on shipping costs that you're billing. So let's say that your pledge is $50 and you have on top of that $10 of shipping costs, we will only charge our 5% on the initial $50 of your pledge. And then you will have the payment processing fees. But again, as this is connecting directly with your Stripe hook, right? You're paying the Stripe flat fees or the PayPal flat fees. There's no commission from Game On top of that. So if you, for instance, like on PayPal, you will have different rates potentially depending on the type of account you have. We will apply exactly the rates that you're generally getting because there's like no intermediate commission in there.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So basically, it seems that people directly get the funds right away, rather than from like a Kickstarter Indiegogo perspective. Those platforms hold the funds for like 15, 20 something days before it gets dispersed. But now, since you're more of like an eBay in a way, the funds go directly to the campaigner, the creator, to even like initiate production right away, for example, and then they get invoiced by the platform, you, at the end once everything is all wrapped up.
Well, that's about it. Yes. Got it.
Okay, that is a really, again, very key differentiator. Actually, a lot of people really worry about that 14-day time frame, those like 21-day time frame before funds get dispersed. So knowing that it's very instantaneous, and again, it's very custom solutions that you're bringing to game designers is really, really like a great unique point about Game On too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And from here, right, like, what are kind of the things you're most excited about this year for Game On?
I'm most excited about, that's a good question. I'm most excited about this year on Game On. I know obviously there are a couple of projects that are upcoming that I cannot talk about because I have to wait until the project manager announces them, but obviously I'm very excited about those. And then, like I said, most of it is about the new upcoming features and also finishing the ones, well, not finishing, but like fine-tuning the ones that are out there. Those are always things that I'm looking forward. And then is also everything about the reflection about how to move on in this digital world that's less convention-based. I know we've been through all the conventions all year long initially, so that changes a lot. And I think we have a couple of ideas there as well, and I'd like to see our space evolve there a lot. So again, have to wait for formal announcements, but those are things that I think are personally exciting, innovating, and very, very interesting.
Love it. I'm personally very excited about all the things that are coming up with Game On too, knowing all these different features that you're building out and all the very specific game tabletop niche tools are coming out. So with that said, thank you so much for your time, Laura. This was really, really educational, really helpful. And, I myself learned a ton today. So thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. And for everyone else, if you have any other questions for Laura, just leave it into the comments chat section of wherever you're watching this, and she'll be able to get back to you. All right.